in being able to take the pressure on and take the crushing and have breakthrough on the other side to like to stand through it and to not give up and to not like necessarily pray or wish the problem away, but actually see like what am I meant to learn in this season, in this. Hi friends, and welcome to the Cypress Room. This is a brand new podcast where we're going to dive deep on influencing with integrity. And whether you're, an influencer, a content creator, and you have 500,000 followers, or whether you're just, a regular person that's not on social media, you have people that are following you and that you're influencing. And we're here to encourage you, and we're here to create community. And so before we tell you about what all the podcast is, and before I get totally ahead of myself, let's do some introductions. Does that work with you? Okay.
Sounds great.
If you don't know me, hi, I'm Christina Mascari, and I am a full-time content creator, and I operate under the brand name Pretty Distressed. You can find me flipping furniture, making over furniture on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all the social media things. And I have been doing that full time since 2019. I am also a wife of, I think, 16 years. Are you 15?
15.
Okay, so I'm 16. I think it's going to be 17 this year. I've been married to my husband, Michael, for 17 years. And he's smoking hot, and he's very strong, and he's super smart. And I love him a lot. And he makes life a lot easier and a lot more fun. I'm also a mom to 3 kids. Their ages are 8, 10, and 13, and they keep me very busy. What else do I want to tell you about myself? I think that's it. I mean, we're going to get into who I am a little bit. We're going to go into a little bit deeper in our stories, but now I want you to hear from my fabulous co-host, Miss Meggie Honeycutt.
Yeah. Hi, friends. Welcome to our first episode. I am normally a behind the scenes type of a person. I've worked behind the scenes with Christina. I'm Pretty Distressed for about 3 years now, working on brand partnerships, social media, just ways to grow Pretty Distressed as a brand. And about a year ago, I started my own kind of boutique agency and took on a few more clients where I help them monetize and get paid for their content, mostly through brand partnerships. So before that, I was in corporate sales and marketing for a while before I decided to be a stay-at-home mom to raise my 2 kids. They are ages 8 and 11. And I've been married for 15 years.
She knew how long she was married for.
Well, I just had an anniversary. Okay. That's how I can remember. 15 years to Jonathan. He's pretty awesome too. And yeah, that's it. We live here in Franklin, so we're coming to you live from Tennessee. And we're so excited to be here. Welcome to the conversation.
Welcome. This is going to be fun because we don't know what we're doing, you guys. This is definitely just a step in obedience for us. Like Meggie said, we not only are we friends, but we've worked together for about 3 years now, and she's been helping me grow my brand and grow my business. And we like to sit down and have a weekly meeting.
Yes.
I think it's been a long time.
Doesn't happen that often these days.
It hasn't happened a lot these days, but there was a season where we were doing that meeting really regularly while we were kind of ramping things up and figuring out how to work together and how you could best like help me and just grow the business and grow brand partnerships and stuff. And we would sit there for a little bit longer than we should at breakfast, and we would do all the business stuff, but then we would talk into like all the behind the scenes stuff, like what's happening in the industry, like other entrepreneurs that we know, and just like watching people kind of just walk through this entrepreneurship thing. And we're like, I feel like this is a podcast. Like some of our conversations felt like podcasts.
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely the origin, is us having those conversations, but also wanting to welcome other people in and even to get different perspectives and feedback is always fun too. So we're hoping that you out there, our audience, can give us some of that feedback. Join us in the conversation. Let us know about your experiences in the content creation industry, but even outside of that, life experiences, because nobody wants to live in a vacuum, right? Like,
yeah. And that's what's been the cool thing about Meggie coming on, because I was doing this on my own for such a long time, and it's really isolating. And there's just such a spark and magic that happens when you collaborate with someone. So we're kind of wanting to take like what our collaboration has taken my business to and invite you guys into that conversation. Like maybe we can spark something in you that's going to take you to the next level, whether it's in friendships, like your marriage, business. And, you know, we are females and we're moms. And so that's going to play a lot into this. But I just want you to know that like wherever you're at, like whatever age you are, just anything, like you're welcome here. And we want to have this be like a place where you feel welcome no matter what you look like or where you come from. So I think that's an important piece of this.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yes. I think everyone's welcome and everyone brings value to the conversation as well. Like we all have different life experiences, things we've been to. We're all at different seasons in life. And that's so important. That's why we're not meant to do life alone. That's why building community is essential, I think, for success in all areas of life, whether it is being a wife or a husband or a daughter or a friend or a mom or a dad. You can't do life alone. And so I think that's the heartbeat of this podcast, is that we want to build community. I think that's becoming harder in a digital age to find connection, but that's definitely our heart. And we're sort of learning as we go what that's going to look like. But join us for the journey, and you can say you were here from the start. Yeah.
And so definitely show up in that comment box down below. We are running this on YouTube as well as, you know, anywhere you can listen to podcasts. So if you want to be part of the conversation, definitely head over to YouTube and subscribe, and you can comment down there, and that'll be the easiest way to contact us. And we want to know about you guys. We want to know about your story. We're going to share a little bit of our story today and kind of where we're at, and just do like the get to know you. This is like we're going out to coffee for the first time and getting to share like our stories with each other. And then we're just going to build from there. I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah. And I think these are always my favorite first podcasts, because I love to know about people and how they got to where they are and why they do what they do, and about their personal style. And I always think that's so interesting. So
very cool.
It's our turn to share, I guess.
It is. And like we said in the beginning, like we want to dive deep. I think both of us we don't like
surface level
conversations. Sure. And, you know, with just the social climate now, especially with social media, with Instagram and TikTok, and how it's like these 15, 30-second videos are so hot. And I understand why, because you can consume a lot. But I feel super burned out a lot after I sit and do a scroll. Right. Because it just kind of like sucks the life out of you, because you're not getting any meat. It's like sugar. It's like eating a peanut butter cup. It tastes really good. Don't get me wrong. I love peanut butter cups. But after I eat the peanut butter cup, it's literally giving me nothing. Yeah. So we just want this to be a place where like you can feel seen, feel known, and just and really
hopefully we can give you some tools at the same time to maybe help you out.
Yes. And at the same time, we have not made it.
Nope.
We are not perfect. We have completely just piecemealed this whole thing together. We don't have a producer. We don't have an editor.
No.
We figured out how to buy microphones and a mixer and the headphones, and we're figuring out the lighting and whatever. We're just set up in my home. So you guys are in my home. This is officially the Cypress Room, which is kind of funny because it's also my husband's office. And he's displaced for today. He's working at the kitchen table. So shout out to you, honey. I love you. Thank you for letting us use this room today. And it also is a guest room. We have a Murphy bed in here. So this is just like a multi-purpose room, but you are in my home. I am letting you into my space. And we just painted it green, like before we even name the podcast. So I think it'd be kind of fun before we're going to dive deep into our stories and how we're here. But I think it would be kind of cool to tell them about like the Cypress Room name and where that came from.
Okay.
Because we're sitting in this green room that we painted kind of prophetically before we even knew what we were going to name our podcast.
Yeah. Okay. Well, when I was praying about this podcast, like Christina said, we had this idea like a year ago, and it was just, I think in January when we finally decided to take the step forward to actually do it, to record and come up with a name and everything. So I started praying, and I just started thinking about the concept of evergreen, and not just the tree evergreen, although that is part of it. Just the concept, in marketing of evergreen is content that's always relevant. It never goes out of style, I guess you could say. It withstands trends. So I love that thought of like building things that last, that aren't subject to trends or to different seasons. And that goes along with the thought of an evergreen tree. Is when I looked at the meaning of that, an evergreen tree, one of the definitions was it doesn't wither even in the winter months. And I love that, because I think I want to build businesses and relationships that last, that even when it's a hard season, that they don't wither away, they don't go away, they don't crush under the pressure. Mm-hmm. And then that kind of leads us into how we came up with Cypress, because evergreen, the word,
it's just so generic.
It's very overused, I think.
Yeah. And can mean a lot of different things.
It can. I think when I went to go like populate it in some AI tools to see what it would think the podcast was about, it was all about like green energy and sustainable and like
sustainable stuff. I can see, yes.
Which didn't really help us on our mission. That's not it. So we started thinking about different types of evergreen trees, and there are a lot. And some of them don't roll off the tongue, really. Mm-hmm. So we kind of put our finger on a couple, and Cypress was one of them.
And we just kept coming back to it. There's something about Cypress. And what's really cool about it is, as we looked at it and as we were writing it out, it has the word press in it. Mm-hmm. And I think both of us have experienced in life that the pressing and the crushing of different seasons in our life and different challenges, that actually that has refined us and has kind of shaped who we are as people. And I think today in society, people just don't want pain. Mm-hmm. They don't want the pressure. They just want everything to be, they don't ever want anything bad to happen to them. And it's just like, that is like never going to happen.
Yeah, that's not
so
life.
I think there's really beauty in being able to take the pressure on and take the crushing and have breakthrough on the other side, to stand through it and to not give up and to not like necessarily pray or wish the problem away, but actually see like what am I meant to learn in this season, in the pressing and the crushing. So I think Cypress spoke to us in that way. And then Meggie actually found a verse in Isaiah that talks about a cypress growing like from once where there was thorns. And there's another verse in Isaiah that talks about streams in the wasteland and streams in the desert. And so that was just something really beautiful to us, that something beautiful and something evergreen and something healthy can actually come out of chaos and actually come out of that crushing and pressing.
Yeah.
And then we Googled it.
And it was all the handles were available.
All the handles were available.
Which is a miracle in itself.
So follow us on TikTok and Instagram at Cypress Room.
Yep.
And on YouTube, come find us at Cypress Room as well. So that was just kind of cool. It is overwhelming to try to come up with a name and a theme and flesh all this stuff.
And the fact that the handle was available everywhere. The URL was available.
Yeah.
We felt like that was a sign in itself, because that wasn't the case for some of our other ideas.
So here we are. We have it. The only thing that we have hired out is we hired a beautiful, lovely graphic designer, because we did not want to try to piece that together. So we've invested in some equipment and we invested in a graphic designer, but everything else we're kind of just doing on our own. We don't have a producer. We don't have multi-camera angles right now, but they will come.
Speaking that out.
I'm speaking that into life. So we're just here. We don't know what we're doing, but it's okay. And we're going to learn as we go, and we're going to get better every episode we put out. And We're going to try to make it past 8 because I've read that most podcasts only make it to 8 episodes. So if we can make it to 9, at least.
We're going to do it. You guys can hold us to that.
That's going to be our goal. But yeah, I think personally as a content creator, I love the behind the scenes stuff and the business aspect. And I've been, speaking at conferences for years. I have some people that I mentor. I run a behind the scenes thing on my Instagram and I just love it. I love the ins and out of the business, and there's not a lot of places that you can learn about. And I think it's kind of hard to hear people speak about it authentically a lot because it's scary to pull back the curtain of how you do this. And it's so competitive. I think sometimes people don't want to share things. And I think it's oversaturated with these 10 tips will get you to 500,000 in a week. And I don't really believe in those things. And it's the industry is constantly changing. So we are doing this scared. We're doing it before we know how to do it. We don't really know how it's going to go, but that's what I'm always encouraging people to do. Pretty much every person I meet and they're like, oh, I'm a painter. I'm like, oh, do you have a TikTok? You should be painting those and putting them up. And, it could be a way for you to get more eyes on your art and you could earn money on your content. And then you can also sell your art. Like every person I meet, I try to convince them to start a YouTube channel. And I'm not trying to convince all of you to start a YouTube channel.
But to just start. Whatever that dream in your heart is, I think, just like us with this podcast, the hardest part is just starting.
Yes.
So,
and it took us about 30 minutes to hit record this morning, but we did it and we're here.
She's right.
And we're probably, I don't know, maybe like 15 minutes in, hopefully. Maybe not that far, but we're going to just keep rolling.
Yeah.
So yeah. I don't know. Where do we want to go next? Should we start just telling a little bit of our stories since we kind of gave them the background of what this is going to be? And I guess just one more thing before we share kind of our stories and how we ended up here, is that, no, I lost my train of thought. So maybe we're just going to tell our stories and then I'll come back. I had something and totally lost it, but it's okay.
It'll come back.
It'll come back
at the right time.
It'll come back at the right time. But just a little bit about me. We kind of have similar stories, which I think is funny. We're both super overachievers in like grade school. Even in grade school, I remember, and high school and college, I was, Dean's List, straight A's, had like a full ride to MTSU, Middle Tennessee State University. That's a mouthful, but it's right down the street from us. It's about 45 minutes away from where we live now. I was just a super overachiever my whole life. And my only goal was to get a job and like climb the corporate ladder, and everything in my life centered around like, well, if I'm not achieving, if I'm not getting good grades, if I'm not getting awards, if I'm not winning, if I'm not the top in my class, like then I'm nothing. Like my value and my worth was so based around that. And I worked in the corporate world for 7 years, and it got a little, I did get married in that time. And my husband is so smart, you guys, and he's in sales and he just has like a brilliant mind and has always really succeeded in his career. So when we got married, pretty early on, we got transferred because he got a position. And it was kind of at that point, I had been in the corporate world for like 4 years and I was doing good. I was succeeding, but I did not like it. It was not fulfilling to me. I was in corporate communications and I would sit in a cube and I would write newsletters and press releases. And I went there and I showed up and I did a good job because that's who I was, because my value was attached to that. But so that first move when we moved to Minnesota, that's actually where me and Meggie met, was in Minnesota. I kind of was like, okay, who am I? What is my role? What am I doing? Because my husband obviously has a better path, so we're going to follow his path. And I, as his wife, like I want to support him and encourage him. But where does that leave me? Like, am I just going to work to live? And that's kind of basically what it turned into. But I still had so much value and worth attached to that when we started family planning and having a child, I was like, well, I'm going to work because my kids are going to see me work and it's very important. And I've worked my whole life for all of this. And that this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to work. So through my whole pregnancy, everybody thought, oh, she's coming back to work. Like I was like, there was never a thought in my to anybody who wants to be a stay-at-home mom and you have that desire on your heart, like I pray that you get to do that. But that was never my dream. It was never my desire. I always wanted to have a family and always wanted to have kids, but I never wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. So pretty ironically, after I had my son and I did my maternity leave, it was so much fun. Like I had a really good baby and we just got to hang out all day, and I nursed all my kids. So I nursed him every day. And so we were very bonded after the first couple of weeks are a little rough. We'll save that for a whole nother podcast, becoming a mom. But it just like shifted everything in me and who I was. And I did not care about achieving anymore. I just really just wanted to stay home with this little kid. And when I went back to work, like my first week, I remember being like, what am I doing here? And then I would sit and calculate like how much daycare cost and how much I was literally making per hour. And like I told you guys, I was a good worker. I loved working and getting accolades, but I didn't find purpose or meaning in it. And so I was talking to my husband about it, and I was like, I don't know. I feel like I'm supposed to stay home. And he really wanted me to, but he never pushed that on me. He was like, well, maybe give it 6 weeks and then we'll reevaluate, or give it 2 months. So we had this plan like, okay, I think it was like 6 months we said, which was totally unrealistic that we were going to wait that long, that we needed to wait that long to figure it out. But I said, I had it in my mind. I'd been back for a week, I think. And I was like, okay, the plan is 6 months and then we'll come back together and we'll reevaluate like if I should stay home. And I'm sitting at church on Sunday in the mother's nursing room. So I'm already feeling like very bonded to my child. And I think this is the first time that I can tell somebody I heard the voice of God, but it was through somebody else. It wasn't like an audible voice in my ear. But I'm sitting there nursing my son. I'm like, okay, I've made this decision. I'm going to give it 6 months and I feel really good about it. And I hear the person speaking on the stage say, God's already told you what he wants you to do. You just need to take the step of obedience. And so I knew in that moment, I'm going to stay home with my son. And when I said that out loud, I was like, how am I going to do that? And it's never a thought that I had in my mind that I was going to do. But it was just so clear that it was like, okay, like God is telling me what to do. So I can either try to do this my own way, or I can trust him that he has a plan for me. And so just in that second, I was like, okay, I'm going to obey God. I came out of there. I saw my husband and I was like, I'm quitting my job on Monday. And he was like, what? He was so shocked. He was like, how did we go from this 6-month plan to I'm going to quit my job on Monday? But I didn't give my notice till Tuesday because my boss wasn't there Monday. So I had to sit there all day Monday, just sweating profusely, being like, I have to get this off my chest. And put my 2 weeks notice in. But I put my 2 weeks notice in. And I stayed home with my son. And that's kind of the first part of my journey of, I think, breaking off that identity, that achievement identity, I think needed to be broken off of me. So before I go into my whole, I don't want to just hear me talking. I want to hear your story. So I'd love to kind of do your first part of your story too.
Yeah. There's a lot of parallels. I am a very typical oldest child. I'm the oldest of 3 girls. And, I too, growing up, was super achiever, performance driven, wanted to be the best at everything, wanted to get the best grades, be the best at sports.
Were you the best? Because I wasn't.
I was not.
I was in some areas, but not like.
No, I was not the best, but it did not stop me from trying. Because I too think as a kid, I got a lot of value from being good. I think I was okay at a lot of different things, but I did always excel at school. That was one area that I always did really well at. And so I go off to college and I get my undergrad in marketing at Kansas State University. Go Wildcats.
Go Wildcats. What do you say? Emaw?
Yeah, but we didn't say that when I was in college, so it's kind of new.
I was trying to be cool because I didn't go to a school that had like a good sports program, so I try to like gleam off of you and my husband.
Every man a Wildcat.
Every man a Wildcat.
And honestly, I didn't do great in college because I was working full time to kind of pay my way through college because I did not get a scholarship that paid for the whole thing. But I was still incredibly driven in work and in school. I didn't do the best in college, but I was still, in my mind, I knew I wanted to be very successful. And to me, that meant like excelling in the corporate space. So I went to work for a big plastics company, Rubbermaid, right out of college.
I think most people will know what Rubbermaid is.
Yeah.
But I think they think you might, like you were selling Tupperware, so you can tell us a little bit about what it was.
I was actually, I worked on the Home Depot account, was my first role. And I was selling some Rubbermaid commercial products, but mostly it was their tool division, which was a lot of drill bits and saw blades.
Okay, cool.
Stuff like that. So yeah, I worked in corporate sales and marketing roles for about 9 years. And like my goal was to be that corporate ladder climber working mom. Like I thought that was it. Like if you could climb the corporate ladder, be a mom, like you really made it. Like you could do it. And that was what I really always thought I would do. I even went and got my master's degree, my MBA, before I got pregnant with my first child, because I was like, man, nothing's going to stop me. I'm going to have this child. I got my MBA. Like, this is it. I'm going to be doing it. And I actually hadn't even thought of having kids really until I met you and watching you with your oldest.
Oh my gosh, when we met, I was pregnant.
Yes, it was early in your pregnancy because we met in like maybe October, November. And you were like, yeah, I'm going back to work. I was like, look, she's doing it. I can do it. Like,
see, that was my identity. I probably said, I'm pregnant, but I'm going back to work because obviously guys, we're referencing God and talking about church. We're both Christians. We're followers of Jesus. And again, I want you to know that if you're not, it's totally okay that you're here and we love you. I don't know if you have any like preconceived notions about like church people or whatever, but I just want you to know that you're welcome. And this is us. And we're going to bring up Jesus and we're going to bring up God because he's so integral in our business. And so that's just who we are.
Yeah.
And I think in church, like we both grew up in church too. In church, a lot of times people stay home, they homeschool their kids. And that was just never, I was like, I'm not going to.
It was very counterculture, I would say, to want to work and have like littles at home. Yeah. So, I watched her, and even, after you quit your job and stayed home, you were very joyful through the early stages of motherhood. And I thought, man, if she can do it, I can do it. And so we decided to go ahead and go for it. And I should preface this by saying too, my husband also he's very good at what he does. He works in the automotive industry and has continuously excelled and moved up in his roles. So I think we were married 5 years before we had a child. And in those years, I had said, like, because we had moved around a lot, both of us, for our jobs. And I kind of deferred to his job and said, I'll go where you go. Yeah. I was like Ruth and Naomi, my husband, like, I'll go where you go. Like, and that felt to me at the time like a big sacrifice because I thought, okay, God, like, you'll make this work. I'm still going to climb the corporate ladder and I'll just follow him around, whatever that looks like. So I did that for a while, and then I got pregnant with my daughter. And at this time, the year that before she was born, and I was pregnant with her, I was traveling by airplane every single week.
You were gone all the time.
I was.
We couldn't ever hang out during the week.
No. The year I was pregnant with her, I took 92 flights.
Oh my gosh.
And my husband also traveled. So it was really like, how are we going to have a kid and do this too? And it also, it's funny, but it's not. That was my most successful year I've ever had. Was the year I was pregnant with her. I got President's Club, all the awards, all the accolades. And then I have her. and I'm home during maternity leave, and it is hard for me. I did not jump into motherhood joyful. I just didn't. It was so hard for me. I was used to going. Like, I got so much fulfillment, so much purpose, so much identity out of my job. And I honestly never was confronted with that until I had a baby and stayed home for maternity leave. And I struggled. But during that time too, I was also praying, because of my family background and some of the experiences that I had as a child and growing up. I just had this prayer to the Lord that, like, God, I want the legacy of my family to be different. And I just remember one day, like, hearing in my mind's eye, not like an audible voice, but in the back of my mind, like, this is how you're going to do it. Like,
wow,
you're not going back to work. And I wish I could say
Did
that
you argue?
I was like,
when you heard that, were you mad?
Submissive, but I fought against it.
I can see that.
That first year home with her was maybe one of my hardest years. And not only because of just the drastic change in lifestyle, and the infant stage was very hard for me. It was also because we were cutting, like, our income in half at that time. Like,
let me tell you, the life to live is double income, no children.
We were used to
it. It is where it's at. It is fun. Yeah, I mean, you still have to budget, but you get to go on trips. You don't have to worry about anybody being taken care of, and there's not all these extra expenses, and you just get to do really fun things. You get to go on dates almost every weekend.
Yeah. And so that first year, it was a rude awakening. And honestly, at that time, it was a real step of obedience, because on paper, we really shouldn't have been able to afford doing that, cutting our income by that much. But let me tell you, we stepped out, and God just filled in every blank, provided everything. We never lacked anything. And then about when my daughter was a year, my husband got another promotion, which moved us again too. And then I think 3 or 4 years later, he had made up what we had lost through me quitting my job. And I fought for a whole year. Like, I tried to go back to work to find another job for a full year, even though I had heard that from the Lord. And every time God honestly, all the way up until you asked me to work for you, God put a roadblock. It was a firm
with every job.
No with every single one.
Yeah.
And then, can I tell that story?
If you want to.
So she had mentioned me coming to work for her for a little bit, just in passing once. And I didn't think you were serious. So I just went away.
To be honest, I was very scared because, like she said, we've known each other for 13 years, and everything I've ever heard is like, don't work with your friends. It'll ruin your friendship. And I've seen that, like, firsthand with some relationships in my life. So I was very scared, but I felt like you were the only person that I trusted to bring on, because I used to be very about my business.
Yeah. So. Well, I walked away from that and thinking, I don't think she's really serious, but God, if this is really something like that I should do, then have her come back and bring it up again and have her offer me this much. And sure enough, we talked again, and you were like, no, I'm serious. Like, and I think we'll pay you this much. And it was like the exact amount.
The exact amount.
And I told you that and you were like, I don't even know where I got that number from.
Yeah, I don't. I think I got it from God. I think I probably was praying about it and asked, and he gave it to me. Yeah.
And I wish I could tell you guys how many jobs and how many times I tried to go back to work in those, 8 years? And every single time it was a firm no. Every door was shut.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I did sit down with you too. And I said, like, this is what I want to do. This is what I would like you to do. And I said, but at any point, like, if you feel like this is compromising our friendships or you don't want to do it anymore, I was like, you have to tell me, because our friendship is so much more important to me than this business. Like, I would throw this business away in a second if it means I'm going to lose your friendship. And I mean, I don't think, like, we've had that many issues.
I was going to say we hadn't had any, but maybe there's one I forgot.
No, I mean, like, we've never had to sit down and be like, listen, I'm just not that serious of a person. And maybe I'd be making a lot more money if I was more serious, but that's the beauty of doing what we do now. I get to just be who I am and kind of operate in that freedom. And it's been nice. Yeah.
Well, and I think we've grown in maturity and in communication. I think if that was different and if it wasn't also God ordained, maybe it'd be a little different. But
yeah, we'll see. Now we're actually doing this podcast together. So maybe there'll be more instances where we have to have crucial conversations. Listen, Christina, you're just too loud and you keep talking over me.
No.
I love that we have similar personalities and I think we have similar like character traits, but we did grow up very differently. Like and we're not going to get into all that today, but I'm sure it'll eventually come out, you know. Yes. We didn't want to start at birth. This already feels really long, but we're trying to just condense it. So I love that we've had different experiences. Like Meggie said, she had to work her way through college. I never knew what that had to feel like. I had the pressure of having like a scholarship that I had to uphold, but my parents were so generous and like paid for my rent and paid for all these little extra things that I need. So like, I have no idea what that feels like, having to go through that, like basically put yourself through school. So we're not the same person. I just want to put that. And we like, I think we have a lot of similarities and like our husbands and things like that. But we still have a lot to learn from each other and the different experiences that we had. So I love that.
I love it too.
Yeah. So, and we kind of fast forwarded a little bit because we talked about how we work together. But basically I kind of wanted to share a little bit more about how I transitioned from a stay-at-home mom to having my own business now. And like Meggie said, that's probably 17 podcasts within itself is becoming a mom, but it just really did something to me and just stripped a lot of things away from me that I thought were important. It's the most selfless thing I've ever had to do in my life. I had a husband too, like Meggie, that traveled a lot. And when I was pregnant with my second child, that's when Meggie, around the time she was pregnant with her first, we got transferred like out of nowhere. And it was very traumatic. I think I was 6 months pregnant maybe. And we just got a phone call on a Friday where my husband's company just slashed a whole bunch of jobs.
Yeah.
And the good thing, the blessing was that he still had a job, but they called him and said, the good news is you still have a job. The bad news is you have to move in the next month. And I was 6 months pregnant. And we had community and friends that were like family for us. And so we had to uproot and move to Indiana. And I had a baby there like 2 months after we moved and we knew nobody and I didn't have family there. And that was probably the most challenging season for me because I had like a 3-year-old and I had a newborn and a husband that traveled a lot. And I was like, I don't have any help. But my mom was down in Nashville and she would drive up on occasion to come help me. She was actually really excited when we moved because we were really far away in Minnesota. So she did come up and help me, but it wasn't like having her really close. And I didn't, back when you're a new mom, you don't really trust a lot of people with your kids. And since we had just moved there, I just didn't trust anybody. So I had no free time at all. I didn't have a lot of alone time. But it was kind of during that season when I started getting into DIYs. My happy place was Hobby Lobby. I don't know if you guys have Hobby Lobbies, but whenever I would have, Mike could be able to tell on the weekends when I was just like at my wit's end. He's like, why don't you go get a coffee?
It was your Target.
Yeah, it was my Target because it was so much more fun.
And Hobby Lobby.
Was so much more fun than Target because I would go to Target and all you can do at Target is spend money. But at Hobby Lobby, like I would just walk around and like envision decorating my home. And the thing that's cool about Hobby Lobby is they have home decor, but they also have crafts. It's arts and crafts. So there's fabric and there's, you can make wood signs and all these things. So I would just walk around there and be like, what could I do one day? What could I do one day? And I remember that time too, I started sewing. I talked about this in a video that I shared on my YouTube channel. If you guys want this whole story of the backstory of Pretty Distressed, I won't do all of that today, but I started sewing and just doing stuff with my hands and just watching HGTV incessantly. And then finally just started picking up spray paint. And I spray painted a lamp after watching Flea Market Flip. And then I bought like an end table at Goodwill and I decided to sand that down and paint it and all that stuff. It was before I knew about furniture paint. So I started doing stuff like that to have something for me. Like I love my kids and I loved raising them, but it was hard because it was just like everything I did was for them. and I just didn't have anything for me anymore. And that's when I started just doing little things with my hands, and I made some dresses and things, and it was fun. And when we moved to Illinois, we just didn't have any money to decorate our house. We bought a fixer-upper and we moved there to be by family. And that's when I really started getting into doing furniture. Yeah. And I was just doing it for myself for the house, and it was really fun. And then friends and family were like, this is cool. How are you doing this? I'm like, well, I enjoyed teaching and talking to people about what I was doing. And I just decided to start a blog and a YouTube channel. I still can't tell you why. I think it's just because I was enjoying it and I wanted to share it with other people, kind of similar to what we're doing here.
Because I feel like at that time, YouTube wasn't like now, where it's like the trendy, like everybody's doing
wants
it.
To be a YouTuber, kind of like nobody was doing that. And the only reason I started a YouTube channel is because my blog was on Blogger. And so YouTube, you could just embed in your videos. And that is the only reason. If I could have uploaded them directly to my blog, I would have just done that. So that's another God thing. Like just because it was like, well, this is how you have to upload videos to your blog. I never thought like, this is going to be a career. I'm going to be a YouTuber. And now you can't do that, which I think is awesome. But back when I started, that was not the case. So it just, I was painting things I had like a cousin that asked me to paint a table for them. I did that. And then I would like sell stuff on Marketplace and at garage sales and things like that. But I kept blogging about it the whole time. And then I just had a couple of videos, and I would make videos when I felt like it. I also had another kid during that time. So it was just like very slow going. This all started in 2014. And I didn't go full time being a content creator until 2019. So there was a long time in there. So all the people that are like, well, I'm going to be a YouTuber, and you expect like within 6 months to get monetized. It's not the most realistic thing. It does happen for people. I've seen it happen for people. But it is a long, slow kind of march to get monetized and build your following and stuff like that. And that's just what happened while being a stay-at-home mom. I just kept doing it while I had time. We moved to Tennessee, I think like a year before I went full-time. And I kind of, at that point, when we moved to Tennessee, like I didn't do anything. And I was kind of just trying to like figure out my life here. I wanted to spend time with my parents. That's why we moved here. And I really wasn't doing anything. And I just had a couple of videos that I made before we left Illinois just take off.
Yep.
And they started earning money. And then I was like, oh, well, maybe I could buy a new computer. Cause I used to do my videos in 2018 on a computer that was like from 2011. And it took me 3 weeks to make one video, and it would take 2 days for it to download from like iMovie. And then it would take me like a day to upload it. So that if there was no streamlining process, it was very like, we were just making it work with what we had, kind of similar to the technology that we're using today to film this podcast. And I just had a couple videos take off. And so then YouTube, I was in the partner program, and I started earning money, and I was able to buy a new laptop. I saved enough money to go to this conference that I'd always wanted to go to, which I think we should do a whole episode on Haven. Do you think we should do that?
We probably should.
Okay. Haven is really cool. We're going to do a whole episode on it. It's coming in July. So we'll do the episode before Haven comes, so you guys can know about it.
We can do some podcasting at Haven.
I would love to do some podcasts at Haven, because we want to have other like content creators on here, other entrepreneurs, and interview them. These are dreams, guys. So dream big with us. Yes. Because we want to hear other people's stories and how they started, because we know we're all different and we can all learn something from somebody else's story.
But I also want to talk about in a future episode, I think what you're saying kind of leads right into it, is really when you started to really get some traction in your business and make significant money was when you really decided to start being consistent. I think consistency is something that is so underrated.
That's so true. Now that I'm sitting here thinking of this, because I had some success.
And I want to talk about that some more. So I think stay tuned for our next episode, because I think we'll dive deeper into
what that looks like,
and why it is the most underrated superpower, I think, in really all areas of your life. And it's not attractive. It's not sexy or fun.
It's not something you can really sell on a course.
No big awards or like pats on the back for
being consistent.
But I think it's really one of the big keys to success and to getting results. Like you could have just kept doing it as a hobby, you know, there would have been nothing wrong with that.
There would have been nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
But you made a choice.
Yeah.
At some point, that line in the sand moment that you were, and I think
and
we
this is
can talk
interesting
about that too.
as we're talking about that. So I went to Haven and I was like around all these other creators, some people that were like really big. There weren't a lot of YouTubers there though, and there still really aren't. So I'm trying to change that by just telling people how awesome YouTube is, because it actually pays you for your content, which will be another future episode of how all my income streams and how we make money. But when I went to Haven, it was amazing because I had been such an island unto myself, and I was making these videos and I was doing this content, but I had never met anybody like me. I didn't meet anybody who was doing this as a living.
There weren't podcasts.
There weren't podcasts about it. I didn't know, like, I knew that you could get paid for content, but I didn't know how to go about it. I think going into Haven, I had like a couple of brands that I was talking to, but I had no idea how to negotiate with them or even what to ask for and all that, or like, how does this even work? And so after I went there, I was like, oh my gosh, like, because I had 40,000 subscribers on YouTube. I didn't understand that was like, that was a big deal. And I was monetized. Getting monetized is really hard. And I didn't realize that was a big deal
even harder
either.
at that time, I think.
I think so too. Because you didn't have the short form content either to help give you a boost from the other areas. So I was like, okay, I have something here. And I stayed off site because I booked it. Like, I decided to go probably like a couple of weeks before it even went, because it was in Atlanta and we lived in Nashville. So we were driving distance. My husband's like, just drive. Like, I will book you points with my hotel thing. I got the kids. Like, you need to go, which is just like a beautiful example of who he is as a person and how he's championed me in this, because there could be a lot of people that'd be like, that's stupid, honey. Like, you want to waste your time doing that. And he's always been so encouraging and such a supporter. And he was like, you need to go. Like, you've always wanted to do this since you started blogging. You should go. And I remember I was walking, it was the very last session. I'm walking back from my hotel and I was kind of mad that I had to stay off site because it was really inconvenient, but I had a lot of this walking time.
Yeah.
For a reason. And as I'm walking back, I'm just like talking to God and I'm like, wow, like, I can't believe I'm here. This is so great. I feel so filled with joy. Like, what am I going to do? I know, like, in a year, when my son's in kindergarten, I'm going to do this full time. And God was like, you're going to do this now.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I'm not. Like, this time I was argumentative. Like, when he told me to stay home with my kids, I was like, yep, done. I'm going to do it. And I don't know why I was like that, because that's not the type of person I am. But when he told me this time, he's like, you're going to do this full time. I had so many questions. I'm like, how? Like, I stayed home with my kids so I didn't have to put them in daycare and this and that. Like, I just had all these, like, I still was hardened in a lot of ways to, like, he had broken down, oh, you're going to stay home with your kids and it doesn't matter, like, to get these accolades and stuff. But then I had made that an idol. I had made staying home an idol and been like, well, I stay at home and I nursed my kids exclusively and my kids are never going to go to daycare and da 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 da. And it's like, the barriers, the restrictions that I was putting in place, I thought were like protecting my children and making my children great or whatever. And it's really like walking in the obedience of what God wanted me to do, that was giving them life and that was giving me life. So this one took a little longer to me be like, okay. But I came home and I talked to my husband about it and said, I think I'm supposed to do this. Is that crazy? And he's like, no, let's talk about it. And what does this look like? And my son was already going to be signed up for like preschool 2 days a week. And we knew someone who did in-home daycare that my niece and nephew had gone to. So she had great references and they had loved their time there and my parents loved them. So it's like, okay, well, that takes out the fear aspect of like, where are we going to send them? And I decided okay, so he's going to do this 4 days a week. And then Friday is going to be Mommy Charlie Day. And I'm going to make a big deal about it. And we're going to go like wherever he wants to go. And we went to Chuck E. Cheese a lot. We went to the McDonald's over on 96 a lot because they have an awesome like playground.
Place.
And the funny thing is this is right before COVID. So we actually only got like 6 months of that. And then everything shut down. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was like, okay, I'm going to be consistent. I'm going to make a video 1 day a week. And y'all, some of those videos flopped because I didn't know what I wanted to do yet. I thought I needed to be everything to everybody. And I was doing all these different DIYs. I was doing like behind the scenes. I was doing vlogs, all these things. And just like the thing that kept performing well was me just doing a tutorial from start to finish and making it really long, like 15 minutes, which I always felt like, oh, they should be under 8 minutes and they should be like broken up into parts. No one's going to watch like a super long video like that. But my audience, thank you, audience. Thank you, YouTube analytics. They really told me like, this is what we want to see from you. This is what we enjoy from you. This is what's teaching us. This is what we're learning from. And then so I started making that content. And another cool thing, I'm taking all the consistency stuff. I don't want to take, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait.
Yeah,
I'm going to
let's
save that
keep
story.
something
I'm
for next
saving
time.
that because it's like a really good. So we're saving that. So you have to come back for the consistency
come back.
podcast. But that's kind of where I stepped into doing this full time. And I got a really huge kick from COVID. Obviously everybody was home, but if I wouldn't have put in that work when God told me to, of like, do this now, don't wait, I wouldn't have had that backlog of videos that when everybody was home in March of 2020 that they'd binged and watched and had some things just go like really crazy. So
yeah, but I think, and that's something we can talk about is that, you know, in the beginning of starting anything, there's an investment of time that you're not going to see a return for.
you're not going to see a return.
So you really have to, when it's put on your heart to start something, first of all, you just have to get started, right?
Yeah, like we're doing this for free 99 right now, guys. We are not earning any money.
But I think you have to be willing to put in that investment of time.
Yeah.
And it may be like for you, several years, but then there's going to come a point where you will see a return on that investment. But I think so often now we want that quick, instant gratification, you know, big return on small time investment. And I just don't think that's always realistic.
Right.
And that's why I always think it's challenging when I hear people who just quit their job and start YouTube and expect to make up that income.
Yeah.
Like it's a slow, gradual increase, I think. And so, you know, maybe that's new information for some people. Maybe it's not, but I encourage you, if it is on your heart to start something, to be willing to make that time investment because it will pay a return. Maybe not in the time you'd like, but stick with it if it's especially if it's something God has called you to, because I think he's always faithful. And in those months of time investment, you're learning, you're growing, you're getting new skills. There is a lot of pressing and crushing. And so I think God will honor that time and that work, and the obedience too. He always blesses obedience. So
and the most of the people, I'm not even going to say most, I'm going to say all the people that I know that are doing this full time, they did 2 jobs for a long time.
Right.
And I didn't do a paying job in this for a long time, but I was full time taking care of my kids. And when I started doing this, I mean, I had a baby, so I was only doing it during nap time. There's actually videos, YouTube videos, I'm painting in my foyer, and you can hear my youngest being like, because he wouldn't nap. But I was like, okay, this is your nap time, so you're just gonna stay in there for an hour while I film this YouTube video. And there were nights when I stayed up till like 3 a.m. and I got no sleep doing a video because it was my choice. I wanted to do it. And I know a lot of people that worked a full-time job, and I know people now that are working full-time jobs and they're just doing content creation when they get home from work. I mean, that is not easy.
No, it isn't.
It's not easy. And you don't know, like you said, you don't know if it's going to pay you back. But what if it does?
Yeah, but
and you
what
don't
if it
know
does?
if you don't try.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I would say though, even if it doesn't pay you back in monetary form, you're learning something during that time that you wouldn't be able to learn any other way.
Yeah.
You're learning skills. You're learning perseverance. I mean, there's lots of things you could be learning in that time, and skills that you could take to maybe do something totally different.
Yeah.
So I think it's worth it either way.
Yeah. Well, I shared my story. So you need to pick back up where like you were staying home. You kind of told a little bit about how you came to work with me, but now you're doing kind of your own thing too. So I want you to be able to share about that as well. So whenever you want to pick back up.
Well, I stayed home for 8 years, which sounds like a long time, but I feel like it went by really fast.
During that time, it did not go fast.
No. But looking back, I'm like, yeah, where did that time go? So I came on board to work with Christina, and, we just had a lot of success. I think the first year, maybe we doubled revenue and then doubled it again in the third year. And we were just building lots of relationships, having lots of success building her brand. And I started having people that were friends and colleagues of yours, other YouTubers, ask me if I'd be willing to do the same thing for them. So I felt like, I said no a lot in those times. And then the more I started praying about it, it felt like it was something. And honestly, it's in my prayer journals a year before I actually started. That's why I say getting start's the hardest part, because...
And like we said, we've been sitting on this for a year.
Yeah, I'm a slow mover, apparently. So I prayed on it for a year. Finally, God gave me a name and a concept, and I took on a few clients who I help with brand partnerships. So that has been an interesting journey too, because I feel like I'm still fairly new to it. I'm still figuring out what I want it to look like, what my capacity is for even taking on clients. I'm not currently taking any new ones because I feel like I'm at max. It also is sort of changing as the industry's changing. Unfortunately, this year it's just been really dry, if I'm being honest, for brand partnerships. I feel like COVID year and the year after was like plentiful. Yeah. I mean, we didn't have time.
Because nobody was in the office actually creating content, so they had to pay content creators to make the content.
And it's just, especially this year. Last year was pretty good too. This year's been tough.
Yeah.
Tough. I think the industry's changing. I think what brands want is changing. What influencers are willing to do is also changing. So I'm really trying to figure out too how my business can change along with that. And I can't say I've figured it out yet, but yeah, so that's where I'm at.
And we still have kids that are very busy. I still have
kids who are in sports, and I have a husband who travels occasionally, and I'm doing a podcast now.
We're doing a podcast.
So yeah, I would say I'm still figuring that out, what it looks like. But yeah, I'm working with 4 creators. That includes you. And yeah, we're just trying to get stuff going.
High maintenance, guys.
But I have to say, the type of business I chose too, that time investment is a big one on the front end, just because it does, to get brand partnerships, and we'll talk about this in later episodes too, but it requires a high volume of like communication, reaching out to get back like a sort of a small return. So it's a constant cycle of time investment, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but the more creators I take on, the more that time investment increases. And right now I'm just decided that what I have is I'm at capacity.
And that's okay.
And that is okay. Yeah. And so we'll see what God does with it in the rest of this year, because I'm not sure what it's going to turn into.
Yeah, and I'm not really sure I've been a full-time creator since 2019, and I just kept feeling this pressing on my heart at the end of last year. And I said this to you, and I have words that have come in from friends that confirmed it, that didn't even know what was going on. It's like, hey, things are going to change for you next year. And I think it was partly the climate. We've been really blessed that we have some long-term partnerships. Yeah. And just like really, I think that's kind of the future of this. These one-off things are just really not happening anymore. And the one-off things, honestly, most of the time aren't very fun to do. It's fun to get to know a brand and the people that work at the brand, and like just be there from the evolution of the product to let's promote it, and do you like it, and let's use it, and all the things. But I'm going off track a little bit. I just knew that things were going to shift for me a little bit, and they have. And, in order to be able to do this podcast, which we don't know if it's going to bring in any finances ever. We're hopeful that it will, but right now it's not. But I'm having to, this takes time. So we've had to say no to certain things or make my schedule not as full. And that's a right. chance. It's a gamble we're willing to take because I think these conversations are important. And I just want to know you guys better than the 30 to 60 seconds and the comment on Instagram.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of people out there that want to do this. And I think it's easy to look from the outside and kind of see how people are doing it. But there's real stuff behind the scenes that we just don't talk about a lot. So I just want to be open and vulnerable and authentic with you guys in that, things are changing and the way I do stuff is different. But I also want to encourage you in the fact that you could have not started yet and still start.
For sure.
And it's fun. It is fun, but it's challenging. So we're going to talk about the real. We're going to talk about the ups and downs. We're going to talk about the views. We're going to talk about the statistics. We're going to talk about how the platforms are changing.
Yeah.
But we're also going to talk about how we do all of this and do life at the same time. Because if you're so just tunnel focused on how do I become a creator and how do I make money, and you ignore your body and taking care of yourself, you don't work out, you don't eat well because you're just tunnel vision, or you ignore your relationships, or you ignore your spouse or your kids, and they just know, oh, well, this content thing that mom or dad does is more important than anything else. You don't want to do that. So we want to teach you to have, or talk to you about how we try to have balance.
Yes.
And all of that. And all the relationships. So there's so much, you guys. We could just sit here and talk for 20 more hours, but we're going to break it up over episodes.
Yes, but I hope you all are encouraged by this podcast. We really do want to create that sense of community. So I hope you'll join us again, interact with us, and
Yeah, you can find us on Instagram, TikTok,
TikTok, and YouTube. You can email
we'll put
us.
all this stuff down here so you can find us. It's on YouTube. It'll be in the description box. We'll have an email set up too that you guys can message us. But please, 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 just in the comments, say hi. Let us know who you are, where you're watching from.
Yes.
What you want to get out of this.
Do you have questions, topics you'd like us to discuss?
And it doesn't all have to be content creation.
Absolutely
we're people too. We're not just, we're not just influencers. I hate that word. But we're going to redeem it. We're going to show you that that influencing can be a positive thing, and that there's integrity in influencing. So we're going to talk about all of that. And we did it. We made it through our first episode.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
I am too.
Well, we will see you guys back next time, and we hope you join us again in the Cypress Room.
Yeah, have a good one.
We did it.